In this video, I'm going to show you how to use American buttercream to pipe beautiful roses onto cupcakes. I'll show you in 3 steps just how you can create a simple design and then how you can elevate that. By the end of this video, you're going to have the knowledge to go and recreate this anytime you want. So the first step is the simple rose. So for this one, we're going to start with a red icing. Now I have somewhere on the screen here a video showing you the color that this started off at. Now I'll link you the video where you can go and watch how to make this buttercream recipe yourself. I started coloring this a couple of hours before I wanted to use it because the color deepens, it develops over time. You'll see the color that it started off as versus the color that we have now. So just be conscious of that when you're adding the color. Add a little less than what you think you need because it will get deeper as it goes. Now for anybody who is quite proficient at using a 2D head, I suggest skip ahead by 30 seconds. But if you haven't used the 2D before, let's have a look at how to make a rose. So you can see my preferred holding method here is just to wrap this around my finger. It gives me really good control of the piping bag. A couple of twists, make sure you've got a nice little bit of pressure on the end here. Now the key to this is a clockwise motion. Now I'm left-handed. If you're right-handed, you're still going to pipe in the same motion, but just keep in mind here, it's going to look a little different. So we start with a little bit of pressure out as we push in first, and then we apply an even amount of pressure as we swirl around. Stop applying pressure to release, and it's that simple. I know it sounds that simple, doesn't it? If you are having a little bit of trouble with it, practice it 4 or 5 times, scoop your icing back up again, have a go. Practice makes perfect. It took me quite a while to get this down pat too. Okay, so now that you've practiced that a few times, let's transfer that across to the cupcakes. So again, a little bit of pressure in the center and then just swirling around and releasing pressure towards the end. Now you can just give that a little gentle caress in. And then keep repeating for as many of these that you want to just do the simple rose technique on. If you would like to elevate these a little bit further though, we have a couple of different colored icings here. We're going to do some white, some green leaves. We're going to finish them off looking beautiful, but these are just pretty on their own, aren't they? Okay, catch you back in a little bit. Okay, so now that we have our white roses, we're going to move on to some white frosting. Now, I've used a different tip here. It's very similar, but I understand that we can't always all have all the different tips in our repertoire, right? Like there's just too many to have them all. So I'm using a slightly different one. That way, if you don't have the 2D, you can use the 2C. Again, for anyone who hasn't used it, let's do a little practice pipe. It is the same motion. So a little bit of pressure to begin with, and then a swirl around the outside, and creates this beautiful rose. Go and give it a couple of tries, come back. Okay, so now you've given that a couple of goes, let's transfer that onto some cupcakes. Again, remembering just to have a nice firm hold, a couple of twists to give you that pressure behind the icing. A little pressure in the middle, and then a swirl around. Now, this gives you more of a kind of a camellia effect than a rose, but it is still very rose-esque and quite a lovely finish. So if this is the tip that you have available to you, it is a great alternative to the 2D. So let's get a few more of these done. Now, this is a perfect example. Sometimes they actually just don't go very well. So what we're going to do, and that was an air pocket. So there was a bit of an air bubble in there, and unfortunately, because of that, the icing didn't come out smooth. So I am going to apply that back to my bag so I can pipe it again later. I'll just give that one another go. Much better. Okay, So now we have some very simple but elegant finishes to our cupcakes. We can either leave them like this or we can move on to the next stage, which is where I'm going. Okay, so for this next design, we're going back to our red icing. We're going to create the same design, but on a smaller scale. So we're going to try and just create like a little rose off to the side here. So it'll depend on what outcome you want as to how many large roses, small roses you want, but just pipe as many as it works for you. Okay, so I have a few done with red. I'm now going to do the same thing with the white, just a smaller swirl. They don't have to all look the same. They don't have to be perfect. This is keeping it simple and easy. All right, while we still have our white icing out, let's go back to, let's give this a little clean. Let's go back to the red roses that we had already, and we are just going to place this down and leave a little dollop. And as you can see, it creates a flower design and is a really lovely way of filling in that space and creating such a bright color contrast. Really fills that space in lovely. Okay, so swapping back to the red, and we're going to do the same. It's going to be a slightly different outcome because obviously it's a different tip, but it will be very similar. Okay, so we now have these beautiful contrasting colors with the simple roses and the slightly more fancy rose and flower combination. The next thing that we're going to do, if we want to take this a step further, is to add some green in. Now I like to create a raised bud look. I do that by using the size 8 tip. Now if you don't have a size 8 tip, anything that's close to that will work very, very well. And the idea here is to just apply a little bit of pressure and create a column and pull away. You want to create at least 2 in a group. And just use your own creativity to decide where you want them to be. Okay, I think they look beautiful. So again, it's at this stage that you can be happy with them how they are, or we can elevate these even further. So to do so, I have a number 1 piping tip here with just some more white icing in them. And what we're going to do, and this can be a little bit fiddly, is you're going to take the end of your number 1 and you're going to push it into the top of the bud and then just like squeeze a little bit of your white icing. I say a little bit fiddly because obviously we've just piped it and so it's a bit soft, but you can see here it almost looks like there's a flower that's about to open up from out of this little bud. Okay, go through, pop some tips in yours and I'll be back with you soon. What you can, however, do while we still have our white icing out is just pop a little dollop in the middle of the red. just gives them a beautiful floral finish. And then similarly, grab your red icing, and if you wanted to go back through and pop a dot on those smaller ones, you can, or I prefer at this point, because we've already got a tip that is thin and ready to use. Let's clean this one off. We can actually do the same, but with a little bit of green in our white flowers. Okay, so to really finish these off, we're going to want to add some leaves. I actually got started already and then realized I needed to capture this. So we have a 352 leaf tip here. We want to have the pointy bits facing upwards and down. Angle it towards your cupcake, and then as you're applying pressure, swivel side to side. And it gives you that really lovely looking leaf finish. It's up to you how many leaves you put on your cupcakes. I think between 2 and 3 is more than enough, but that is completely up to you, and it's a perfect way to hide the end of your swirl. Because now you don't even know that the swirl finished there. And just applying a little upwards pressure as you finish as well will enable you to be able to have a kind of closed over leaf finish as well. So play with it, decorate them however you prefer, and I will see you in a moment. Okay, so now that we have all of our leaves on, I think one of the main comparisons that we can see is that the 2C tip isn't as fantastic at creating the rose finish. Now, I will do it. You can get away with it if you haven't, but personally, and I think you'd agree with me, the red roses with the 2D look better than the white roses with the 2C. However, I've shown you the comparison, so if that is all you have, then you can get away with it and they still look wonderful. Okay. So now we're going to work on leaves for these guys. Now they're not going to need as much greenery because obviously these are a lot busier than our roses. So I would recommend, and again, up to you, these are your cupcakes, make them however you like, but I would recommend shorter leaves. Just a couple to fill in any blank spaces you have on your little cupcake canvases. Okay, to finish off this particular design, and again, this is completely optional. At this point, you've already got lovely cupcakes, but I do like to just sprinkle a few little white candy balls, hopefully more on them than I just did then. There we go. And I think it just adds a beautiful little baby's breath kind of finish, particularly on the red ones. A little bit more there. It's just a really lovely finish to the whole cupcake. There we go, they're looking lovely. Now, one final step, if you really want to add that final pizzazz to the whole thing, is just a little sprinkle of some luster. I like to use silver on the red and yellow because I think it just adds that real beautiful little sparkle without a color change. Okay, so there we have it. They look lovely, and this is something that you can decide just how simple or how complicated you want to make it. At the end of the day, all you really need is that one key tip, which is the 2D or the 2C. However, as we have seen, the 2D really does create a better outcome. Look how vibrant and beautiful these look. I'm ready to eat one. In fact, I'm going to go and do that right now, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.